With more on the government's Black Justice strategy, we're now joined by Zilla Jones. She's a human rights lawyer who has also been named to the steering group that the government announced today. Ms. Jones, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
So let's begin with your reaction to this. What does it mean to you to have a government address the issue of race and to begin this kind of consultation?
I think it's really significant for the Black community and for Canadians as a whole. As we know, we're now starting to come to grips with Canada's long history of anti-Black racism and how that has been operating in some of our laws, and how it still impacts communities today disproportionately. And for the government to acknowledge that this is happening, and for the government to take steps, concrete steps, to come up with a strategy that will address those inequities and hopefully reduce or eliminate them is a really important moment.
To acknowledge and not have to fight for acknowledgement, I'm sure is huge.
Yeah, like even in my lifetime, people used to deny that Canada had anti-Black racism. They thought it was a US thing. We don't have those problems here. And I think since the death of George Floyd and the public response to that was international, the conversation has really shifted. And it's really encouraging to see people now grappling with these issues and being willing to address them and talk about them, and including the government and also everybody out there. So it's really exciting to live in these times. Now,
your part of it is this steering group. Can you talk to us as to what the work is meant to do? What's the task before you?
Well, my main job is the author of the report. So there are two authors, myself and Dr. Kwasi Owusu-Bempah, I think is his name. So the two of us are going to be writing that report. As part of that, we attend the steering committee meetings and proceedings. And the steering committee, my understanding is that they are the ones that determine the direction that the project will take. So they consult with the communities that they're from. They come from different Black communities across Canada. So the Prairies are represented, Ontario is represented, Quebec is represented, the Maritimes. And as we know, the communities are very diverse in Canada. So there isn't one Black community. There are lots of different histories. There are people that have been here for hundreds of years. There's new immigrants and everything in between. And so they will be consulting with those communities. I think that's a really important point, is that this project is centered around the communities and the people in the communities. This is not the government top-down dictating how things will go. It is the communities telling the government and the government listening. And I'm part of facilitating that.
And telling them specifically their experiences of anti-Black racism and how that has led them to be involved in the justice system?
Yes, I hope we will hear from a variety of voices. So people who have had direct involvement in the justice system, people who may have a child or family member that has, people that maybe haven't had a criminal record, but they may have had interactions with police, all kinds of different aspects of how the justice system has impacted people. And they will be telling us what they need and what the injustices are and how those can be remedied.
Well, you know what's interesting is that this falls under the Black Justice strategy that the government is pursuing. And yet, as you and I speak, how much of this is going to be limited to the justice system? How much of it spills over into the determinants of health, and therefore a multi-tiered approach to how to even address anti-Black racism?
Well, exactly. I think that there's a lot of intertwining and intersectionalism among the systems. The education system is notorious for what we call the school-to-prison pipeline, where young, small children, we sometimes hear about kindergarten kids being harshly disciplined or suspended or treated as criminals in schools. So how does the education system prime Black youth to sometimes be criminalized? How do policies in schools about what you can wear and how you associate impact that? Police in schools, we know, is an issue. So the education system is very much a part of this. The health system, as you said, is very much a part of this, because we know that poor health outcomes are impacted as well by healthcare you can get in the correctional institutions, coming out of the correctional institutions, and mental health being part of that often leads people to be involved in the criminal justice system. So it will likely encompass a number of things beyond just the courts and the jails.
Now, we were talking beforehand, and you say your job is to create a preliminary report by the end of the year and then a final report in the spring. And then what, implementation by the end of 2024?
That's my understanding, is that the government will move to start implementing that right away. And obviously, it's not to say by the end of 2024 our work is done. You know, this is generations of anti-Black racism, and it's going to take time to dismantle that. But what immediate steps can be taken will be taken when the report is received, and there will be some things that can be done right away, and then other things that will begin the work.
You know, it's an ambitious goal, and I'm wondering who keeps the government or holds the government accountable if, for example, after this report, they don't actually implement. Will you be saying something about that?
Well, I think the voters do. So obviously, if they don't feel the government has kept their promises, then they vote with their feet. But beyond that, I don't know that I would have personal power to tell the government what to do, but certainly my work will be there in that report to be referred to for all time. And anyone who wants to can refer to that and show it to the government and say, hey, you commissioned this report. It says that you're supposed to be doing this. Why aren't you doing it? So my hope is that it will be used that way if necessary, but ideally they will uphold their commitments, and I'm optimistic that they will. They seem very committed, and we'll just have to see what time brings us.
Zilla Jones, thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for the record, we just also want to say that we did invite Ministers Lametti and Ian to discuss the matter. We look forward to doing that when they are available.